Hey guys, we're here again today at HardRacing. Today we are working on our Grom SF project bike, and we're going to be installing these driven rear sets. These are specific for the SF, obviously because it's got the low mount exhaust, so they re-engineered the rear sets specifically for the SF. And we're going to mount these up. As most of you guys know, driven, top quality, high-end rear set. As you can see, they're pre-assembled for the most part, and then you just choose which position you want your foot pegs on. Fully adjustable. You got foldable toe pieces, and probably the number one best part about it is full detailed schematic drawings with part numbers for all the miscellaneous pieces, which you can easily get since it's made here in the USA. They're readily available parts, so something a lot of guys don't think about when they buy the cheaper off-brand rear sets is what happens if you break something. It's a nightmare to get spare parts for cheap Chinese rear sets, whereas these are US, so better quality, better fit, better finish, mostly fully assembled, and of course readily available replacement parts. These also can be stock shift pattern or GP shift pattern. You basically would mount the shift rod here for stock and up here for a GP shift, so that's nice for us people that want to do GP shift. That's what we run on all our bikes, so that's definitely a bonus. And again, these are made for higher ground clearance. They're also made for a little bit farther back, so you'll have a little bit more room for your legs for you taller guys. They are made for road racing, so you do lose your spring actuated brake switch, so you would want to install a hydraulic version like this, a pressure switch banjo bolt if you needed the rear brakes to be activated. We personally just use our front brakes all the time when we stop, which activates the brake lights, so it's not a big deal, but some guys want to have both, which is probably the better way to go. So if you are going to use these on the street, make sure you add the brake light switch, the pressure activated brake light switch along with it. And we'll show you how quick and easy it is to put these on today. Alright, so first thing you want to do is go ahead and pick which mounting hole you want to use for your foot pegs and match them up, obviously, so they're the same on both sides. Even at the 0-0, it's quite a bit farther back from the stock, so still going to be back, still going to be up, so we're going to start out with that just to get a little bit more ground clearance, but have our feet a little farther back, a little more comfortable. So what you're going to do is you're going to mount the foot pegs in there. Make sure you get the right angle. You don't want it too far back, too far forward. Just kind of position it up to the bike so you can see what straight up and down is. And then mount the foot pegs using the supplied bolt. Make sure to put blue Loctite on that, and the directions say to mount that at 29 foot-pounds, so make sure you torque it down real good. But the most important thing is put blue Loctite on that, and any bolt that you are loosening or tightening, put blue Loctite on it. Don't forget to do that, otherwise it'll fall out while you're driving down the road, and that's not fun. Alright, little trip we learned a while back is before you remove your rear sets, take a tape measure and measure to the top of your toe piece and then to your top of your foot peg, and that way you have a reference when you put the rear sets on to know what the difference is between the top of this one and the top of that one, so that way your foot is the same way it was before. You don't want your foot peg way up here, toe piece way down there or something like that. It's a pain in the butt to have to sit there dial it in after the fact, so just take a few seconds, tape measure from the ground to the top of that, ground to the top of that, and that way you have the difference between the two of them, and you know when you put your rear sets on how you want to have your shift lever in accordance with your foot peg. And it's good to do that on the other side too, just to have it as a reference. No reason not to. It only takes about 5 seconds. Alright, so next step, we're going to go ahead and start removing the stock rear sets, and you do that by doing bolt for your exhaust, and then your two mount bolts. And obviously at some point you're going to need to support the middle of the bike off the ground, so make sure you have some form of floor jack underneath the motor because this is your swing arm pivot bolt, and if you just pull that out without supporting the motor, the thing will collapse down. So make sure you do that ahead of time once you've loosened up the bolts. Alright, so basically you're going to take nut 19 and get that one off. You're going to take a 12, get that one off, move your rear, and then this can come off. At this point you still don't need anything underneath it. If you want to, go ahead and do this one first. That's what we recommend. As long as you don't pull that pivot bolt out, you're okay. So you're going to pull this thing off, and what you want to do is remove all the stuff off the back of it. The master cylinder, because that's going to go on to your new one. Alright, so basically we've removed the brake side, and all you have to do is just remove the master cylinder, these two bolts here, and then undo it from the brake lever. All this stuff stays intact because you don't need to use it. And this would be your plugs for your new, if you switch to a hydraulic banjo brake switch instead of this mechanical one. That pulls right out of your frame, and that's basically the new switch would connect into right where these came out of to reenact a rear brake switch. Alright, a little down and dirty. If you don't have a floor jack, you can chase the swing arm pivot bolt through with a long rod or a really long screwdriver like we have here. That's similar diameter. Don't use a real thin one or everything will get out of alignment. But if you have a real thick screwdriver that's long, you can chase it all the way through, and that way you can pull the bolt out the other side and everything doesn't come crashing down. And once you remove that long bolt, you go ahead and remove the lower bolt here, and then you go ahead and remove the knuckle joint. Now your shifter side is completely off, and you can reinstall the new rear sets. Just be very careful. Do not bump the bike. Don't even think about trying to roll it around when it's like this. If you're going to do it this way, just be very, very careful. Alright, so next you want to go ahead and remove the shift knuckle from the rear sets by pulling out this pin, and that way you have that for the rear sets. Alright, so what you want to do is just put the knuckle on for now, kind of where it used to be, but don't bolt it down because you're probably going to have to move it, flip it, rotate it based on where you put your rear sets, based on where your shift lever is. So best thing is just put it on temporarily, and then basically you're going to put on your rear sets, bolt them up, and then tinker with the angle and all that of this. Alright, so right now before you do your bolted on, you want to establish standard shift or GP shift. You don't want to be doing that after the fact because it's near impossible to get that bolt out. So decide that now. If you want standard shift, it should already be on it down there. If you want GP shift, unbolt this heim joint and put it at the top one. We are going with GP shift because that's what all our bikes have, so we're going to be switching it from here to back there. Alright, so once you got that down, you're going to head and take the bolt that's included with it and the small spacer that goes on the bottom. The big spacer is going to go up top, but for starters you just want to go ahead and get that in there. Again, remember blue Loctite on the bolt, same thing on this heim joint if you switched it. And make sure that the foot peg is outside of it. Alright, once you get that started, then you go ahead and take this and chase the bolt you had earlier back through the other side. Make sure you have the big spacer on the back. You don't want to do this all over again. Alright, so once you get that tight, it's all lined up, go ahead and put your shift rod on there and adjust it how you want it. And the goal will be that the shift rod and the levers are as close to 90 degrees as you can get them. So you want basically the shift rod and one of those levers to 90 degrees. You don't want them like this, you don't want them like that. You want them this way, so that way you get the best leverage and the best travel when you're shifting. So adjust basically the knuckle and the distance by threading the heim joints in and out to get the closest you can to 90 degrees, while the distance between these two is where you want them. Alright, so next you're going to come over here and install the brake side. First thing you want to do is install the master cylinder. Alright, so this is what it should look like. The back side, got the muffler bracket here, then the master cylinder, then these two nuts, and you're going to slide the brake lever arm into the bottom of the master cylinder, and you're going to put the pin back inside that. Alright, so next you want to go ahead and torque down this big nut to 40 foot-pounds and the bottoms to 23. Obviously on the back side of this is the 14 millimeter at the end of the complete rod, so make sure you have a socket on that so as you tighten this it doesn't keep spinning. If you don't have somebody to hold it over there, just wedge it behind the foot peg so as you tighten it, it doesn't spin around. So this is 40 and that's 23. Same thing on the other side. So the last step is to attach the muffler to the rear set. If you have stock exhaust, then it bolts right directly to the muffler bracket using the supplied bolt. If you have aftermarket exhaust, many of them will bolt on the outside. So basically your rear set is a big piece of aluminum right here, and the stock one mounts on the back side and aftermarket ones mount on the outside. So if you have an aftermarket exhaust, then you'll use the included spacer in between them, and then in the longer bolt, and then you crank that down. So that's the only difference, in case you're wondering what that last spacer is for. It's if you have an aftermarket exhaust that mounts on the outside of the rear set, stock rear sets. So real simple and easy. It's either going to be one or the other. So without it, don't use the spacer, and aftermarket, use the spacer. There you have it. Complete install of the driven rear sets on the Grom SF. Nice, good ground clearance here. Higher up, farther back, but also good clearance here between the exhaust and the rear set. So you should have a pretty good majority of exhaust out there that will clear without any issues. They did a really good job of redesigning these for the SF because of the lower mount exhaust. So it's nice, good quality, US made. One thing that we also recommend, if you're not racing these, the foot pegs are really aggressive and they will eat a hole through the bottom of your shoe. So what we do is to just take a nice file and just lightly go over the tops of them. You're not trying to grind it flat or anything, you're just trying to take the sharpness off. They're made obviously for road racing where you want super tactful for your foot to keep it from sliding off, but on the street and real world it will eat a hole in the bottom of your sneakers or boots. So it's a light file over the tops of them, take the edge off, and your shoes will last a lot longer. That's the brake side, and here's the shifter side. All set up, GP shift again. Only difference will be it mounts up here instead of down there. Nice smooth shift action. That's another bonus you're going to get from this, because you're using traditional heim joint style shift rod instead of that garbage that came with it from stock, which is just basically a bent piece of rod. Your shift action is going to be a lot better fully adjustable. That's definitely a nice extra bonus. So if you enjoyed our video, please be sure to give a thumbs up and post up a comment. We really appreciate your comments and feedback. And of course, please subscribe to our channel. We really need you guys to subscribe, keep this going, help our support our project here. And of course, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and on the forums. And of course, if you have any questions, comments, or are interested in these products, check out our website at HardRacing.com.